Guys, this hunter build is absolutely ridiculous, providing stupid amounts of damage resist and some unbalanced melee damage. I mean, it's so strong that in the right hands, it could probably solo most mythic campaign missions. Now this is thanks to a bunch of artifact mods, some key exotics, and some changes to a few abilities. But before I get into the build, if you guys do enjoy the content, a like and sub would be greatly appreciated. It helps out the channel a lot. So today's build focuses on utilizing our grapple melee to do astronomical levels of damage thanks to its big change, that being it now gets a damage increase from combination blow, which also just got a buff increasing its maximum melee damage from 309% to 400%. Now I will say that the melee damage changes have changed it from being a multiplicative buff to being an additive buff, which did nerf its damage ceiling, but that is where grapple melee comes into play, since it can get buffs from both melee and grenade scaling, granting it the additive bonuses you can stack up for melee buffs and the multiplicative grenade buffs. This gives it some crazy scaling of damage that can nuke even bosses, making it both a viable strat for not only just ad clear focus content, but even most boss fights, as long as you just have a few enemies to kill to keep your combination blow up at all times. And that's not the only thing that makes this build crazy. What we're also going to be doing is some stupid levels of damage resist stacking. Now with this build, you'll be getting 45% from Woven Mail, 31.25% from Frost Armor at max stacks, 15% from Amplified, and an extra 15% damage resist from Faster Protection. This will equate to 72.68% damage resist, meaning we are taking around a quarter of the damage actually dealt to us. And don't forget that we now have 100 resilience built into our Guardians, or at least that's what Bungie told us. Hopefully that's not bugged as well, but still, hey, taking a quarter of the actual damage is kind of insane. So then what is the stat focus on this build? Well, since grenades can apply the highest scalar to our damage, it's best to focus on hitting 200 grenade first for that 65% grenade damage bonus, and then trying to get anywhere above 100 melee, since that is what I believe is the only multiplicative melee scaling buff still available in the game. Now this stat split should be kind of hard to hit, probably until we hit some really juiced tier 5 armor, so for the meantime, I recommend hitting as close as you can, if not 200 grenade stat, and then at least 70 melee so our dodge can fully refund our melees back to us, and then 70 class, which most of can come from font mods. And why you need that high class stat is because combination blows dodge refund now scales with your class stat, which I know is kind of annoying to have to spec into 2 stats just to get the ability refund we used to just get for free, but hey, it's just the world we live in now. Now, onto the subclass build, we're going to be on Prismatic using Silence and Squall as our super with Gambler's Dodge, Combination Blow, and Grapple Grenade, with the aspects Stylus Executioner, which provides us with invisibility, a weaken effect on a melee exiting invisibility, and also has a melee damage multiplier when leaving invis, which actually got a buff from 200 to 300%. Now the other aspect is going to be Ascension, so we can give ourselves amplification for a 15% damage resist buff, and can also apply Jolt to enemies below us, which is great for ad clear, and also a easy way to take advantage of Stylish. Now if you wanted to, you can replace this for Winter Shroud to take better advantage of something like Fast of Courage, which also just got a buff to now be a 50% buff to melee damage, but with this build, I feel like it much more prefers Ascension, and I'll kind of explain why later on. Now onto the fragments, we're going to be taking Fast to Purpose, so when we pick up orbs, we can get stacks of Frost Armor. Now, Frost Armor is a 6.35% damage resist buff that maxes out at 5 stacks on Prismatic specifically for a 31.25% damage resist buff. Next is going to be Faster Protection, which is a 15% damage resist buff when near enemies. Now next, I'm going to be taking Faster Blessing, so we can have a little extra healing when we get melee kills, and then Fast of Courage, so when enemies are affected by Unravel caused by a Grapple Grenade, we can get a 50% damage buff against them when using Combination Blow. Now these last two can be changed out for really anything else you'd prefer. They're just the only other ones I've seen that can synergize with this build. I just think Fast to Purpose and Fast to Protection are the 2 key ones to make this build go. Now for the artifact mods in this build, we are taking Tightly Woven, while Woven Mail is active, gain increased class ability and grenade stat. Now this is 20 to each stat, which is, a very nice buff. Elemental Benevolence, granting allies buffs, gives class ability energy. Frost Renewal, while you have Frost Armor, taking critical damage releases a freezing burst and grants Frost Armor to you and nearby allies. Tangled Web, creating a tangle by defeating a strand debuffed enemy suspends nearby combatants, and the most important mod for this build, Shield Crush. While you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or a Void Overshield, your melee charges faster and deals increased damage. And while you are Amplified or Radiant, your grenade charges faster and you gain increased damage. So what you do with this is get Amplified from either getting multi-melee kills or from using Ascension, and then Woven Mail from using your Grapple melee, and you'll get the buff from both at the exact same time. Now this is a 50% damage buff for each, but with Grapple you'll instead be getting half the buff from each, which is still a very large increase to your damage, allowing you to just nuke enemies, and it's pretty easy to have 100% uptime on both Woven Mail and Ascension. Now some of you guys might be wondering how you can have good uptime on Grapple. Well, that is going to be thanks to our exotics of choice. We're going to be using Navigator and a Hoyle plus Certarachne class item. This will give us a very good ability uptime from Hoyle in case we lose our Grapple, 10 seconds of Woven Mail every time we use our grenade thanks to Certarachne, and with Navigator, we can actually create a grapple point that we can use to spam grapple melees from. This will allow us to pretty much always have Woven Mail up at all times, and from that we can even create tangles that we can then keep in place to do the same thing from, or just use them to launch and grapple to and fly across the map, which is always so much fun. Now for the rest of the weapons used in this build, we're going to be using a 1-2 punch shotgun. There are obviously tons of options to pick from, so whatever is your favorite 1-2 punch shotgun, you can just slap into the energy slot. And then really just whatever heavy you like. For me, I'm using an Eager Edge Sword for the sake of just movement. Now I will say if you do not have Navigator and its Catalyst, another great option is Bastion, since it does apply a melee damage buff on its fusion shots, and melee hits give it increased charge rate and weapon damage. Now that melee damage buff just got massively increased too, from 100% to 300%. So yeah, it is a really strong option now, but of course that comes with the downside of having to deal with a little less grapple uptime, but thanks to having a Hoyle class item, it's really not much of an issue. Now the mods for the build, on Helmet we're going to be using double hands-on so we can get as much super gains as possible from our melee kills. On Gloves we are taking triple heavy-handed so we can spawn orbs to grant us stacks of frost armor and use for our font mods. On the chest, really you can use whatever you want from resistance focus mods to even health font mods like I am, so that orbs can chunk me a little extra health back. On Boots, it's kind of the same deal as the chest, use whatever you like. I personally have on Better already, Innervation in case I lose my grenade, and just need it back quick from trash mobs, and then also stacks on stacks. Then lastly on the class item, we are taking 1 or 2 class font mods to make it easier to build into our class stats, since you need at least 70 to grant your full dodge back after getting a kill with combination below, and then time dilation to make our armor charges last an extra 5 seconds. So yeah, this build is kinda nutty. It has some stupid levels of damage from our grapple grenade and can give us some pretty cheesy levels of damage resist with not really much effort required. And the gameplay you're seeing too is with pretty low investment into stats. When you can get some juiced tier 5 armor pieces and get to 200 grenade stat as high melee as possible, I know this thing will just set off nuclear bombs with each grapple melee. I mean, it's gotta be insane. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this build. It's the first combination blow style build I've made in a really long time, and I can't lie, it's so much fun to play. I hope you guys feel the same way as me. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next one.
Peace.